Hello friends, today we will study Science Chapter 1 from Cbsc board. These notes are very helpful and important notes which you can learn for your examination. What is chemical reaction? Chemical reaction is the process by which two or more substances react with each other to form new substance with different properties. These are the following changes to determine that the chemical reaction has taken place: change in state, change in color, evolution of gas, and change in temperature. So, when you see these changes in any reaction, then it is called as a chemical reaction. What is chemical equation? A chemical equation is the symbolic representation of a chemical reaction in the form of symbols and formula. When in the reactant, entities are given on the left hand side and the product entities on the right hand side. For example, magnesium oxygen on the left hand side, when react together, it gives magnesium oxide. The reactants, magnesium and oxygen, are on the left hand side, so they are reactants, and magnesium oxide is on the right hand side. The product are always on the right hand side. So a chemical equation is the symbolic representation of a chemical reaction in the form of symbols and formula, where the reactants are on the left hand side and products are on the right hand side. What is balanced chemical equation? The chemical equation that shows the chemical reaction needs to be balanced. A balanced chemical equation occurs when the number of the atoms involved in the reactants side is equal to the number of atoms in the product side. So, when the number of reactants which are there on the left hand side, the number of atoms should be balanced with the products. For example, zinc plus hydrogen sulfate gives zinc sulfate plus hydrogen. Here in zinc is 1 plus hydrogen have 2 atoms and sulfur dioxide has 4 atoms. So on right hand side, the product zinc is 1 SO4. You can see there are 4 atoms and hydrogen has 2 atoms as on the left side. In next reaction, ferric in solid has 3 atoms, hydrogen has 8 atoms, 4 2s are 8, and oxygen has 4 atoms. After reaction, you can see in the product, ferric has 3 atoms, oxygen has 4 atoms as on left, and hydrogen has 8 atoms, 4 2s are 8 in gaseous form. So this way the balanced chemical equation can be formed. What are types of reactions? In this chapter we will study different types of reaction. The first one is combination reaction. Such a reaction in which a single product is formed from 2 or more reactants is known as a combination reaction. That is, for example, CaO, calcium oxide, plus H2O, water, when mixed together, After reaction, on the right hand side you will get product calcium hydroxide, releasing a large amount of heat. So, calcium oxide reacts vigorously with water to produce slaked lime. Calcium hydroxide is also known as slaked lime, releasing a large amount of heat. A solution of slaked lime produced by the reaction is used for whitewashing walls. Calcium hydroxide reacts slowly with the carbon dioxide in air to form a thin layer of calcium carbonate on the walls. Calcium carbonate is formed after 2 to 3 days of whitewashing and gives a shiny finish to the walls. It is interesting to note that the chemical formula for marble is also CaCO3. CaOH2 aqueous plus CO2 gas after reaction gives CaCO3 solid plus H2O. That is calcium hydroxide aqueous. When mixes with the carbon dioxide in air, after 2-3 days of reaction, it dries up and gives calcium carbonate in solid and water, that is H2O, in liquid. So the slaked lime reacts with the carbon dioxide in the air and gives calcium carbonate and H2O. This is called as combination reaction. Exothermic reaction. An exothermic process releases heat and causes the temperature of the immediate surroundings to rise. So the rice, potatoes and bread we eat contain carbohydrates. These carbohydrates are broken down to form glucose. This glucose combines with oxygen in the cells of our body and provides energy. The special name of this reaction is respiration. And respiration is an exothermic reaction. When we eat food, rice, potatoes, bread, it breaks down and forms glucose. So this glucose, when reacts with oxygen which we breathe in, at the same time it gives out the carbon dioxide and H2O and energy. So the symbol C6H12O6 in aqueous form is glucose, which reacts with 6O2, that is oxygen, and gives out 6CO2 carbon dioxide plus H2O water and energy. This is called as exothermic reaction in the form of combination reaction. What is endothermic reaction? An endothermic process absorbs heat and cools the surroundings. The decomposition of vegetable matter into compost is also an example of an endothermic reaction. What is decomposition reaction? When single reactant breaks down to give simpler products, this is a decomposition reaction. So when single reactant breaks down to give simpler products, this is a decomposition reaction. In combination, different types of products when react together, they give different types of reactants. When react together, they give one product. In decomposition reaction, one single reactant breaks down into several products, into different types of products, is called a decomposition reaction. For example, FeSO4, ferrous sulfate, is one product. When heated, it gives out, ferrous sulfate is one reactant. Ferrous sulfate is one reactant. When heated, it gives out ferric oxide plus sulfur dioxide 2 gas plus sulfur dioxide 3 gas. Here one reactant reacts and forms different products is called a decomposition reaction. Second example is lead nitrate PbNO2 in solid gives lead oxide plus NO2 plus O2. So here one reactant reacts and give different products, lead and nitric oxide and oxygen is called a decomposition reaction. When single reactant breaks down to give simpler products, this is a decomposition reaction. White silver chloride turns grey in sunlight. This is due to the decomposition of silver chloride into silver and chlorine by light. AgCl, silver chloride solid, when heats up in sunlight, it gives silver solid plus chlorine gas. Silver bromide. Silver bromide in sunlight gives silver in solid plus bromine in gaseous form. So one reactant when reacts with the heat or sunlight, it gives more than two products, two or more products is called a decomposition reaction. When a single reactant breaks down to give simpler products, this is a decomposition reaction. What is displacement reaction? Displacement reaction is a chemical reaction in which more reactive element displaces a less reactive element from its compound. Both metal and non-metals take part in displacement reaction. Reaction of iron nails with copper sulfate solution. Fe plus CuSO4 gives FeSO4 plus Cu. An iron is mixed with copper sulfate. What it does, iron displaces copper from sulfate and gets combined with sulfur and separates copper. So iron creates a breakdown between sulfur and copper because iron here acts as a more reactive element, the stronger element than copper. So iron plus copper sulfate, iron solid and copper sulfate aqueous gives iron sulfate plus copper in product. When iron and copper sulfate reacts, they give iron and iron sulfate and copper. When Pb plus CuCl2 aqueous reacts, they give PbCl2 aqueous plus copper in products. So here lead displaces copper and takes place of copper in the product side. So this displacement is called as displacement reaction. When a more reactive element displaces a less reactive element is called a displacement reaction. Iron is a more reactive element, it displaces copper easily. Lead is a more reactive element, it displaces copper too. So let's see the next question. Next type is redox reaction. An oxidation reduction reaction is a type of chemical reaction that involves a transfer of electrons between two species. An oxidation reduction reaction is any chemical reaction in which the oxidation number of a molecule, atom or ion changes by gaining or losing an electron. Oxidation, this process involves gain of oxygen or loss of hydrogen. In reduction, this process involves gain of hydrogen or loss of oxygen. CuO plus H2 gives Cu plus H2O. So this process involves loss of oxygen on the reactant side and gain of oxygen on the product side. So redox reaction is a type of chemical reaction that involves the transfer of electrons between two species. An oxidation reduction reaction is any chemical reaction in which the oxidation number of molecule, atom or ion changes by gaining or losing an electron. So here oxidation and reduction both are taking place. Here oxygen is reducing in the reactant and oxygen is gaining in the product. So that is a redox reaction. Reducing agent. It is the substance which gives hydrogen or gains oxygen, or it is a substance which is oxidized itself and reduces other. Oxidation is the process which involves loss of electrons, but reduction is the process which involves gain of electrons. So, what is reducing agent? It is a substance which gives hydrogen or gains oxygen. Hydrogen is given out or oxygen is taken in, or it is the substance which is oxidized itself and reduces other. So this oxidation is the process which involves loss of electrons, but reduction is the process which involves gain of electrons. Where hydrogen is given out or oxygen is taken in. What is corrosion? The process of slow conversion of metals into their undesirable compounds due to their reaction with oxygen, water, acids, gases, etc. present in the atmosphere is called corrosion. Rusting. When metals get rusted due to exposure in the air is corrosion. When they are exposed to air, oxygen, water, acids, gases present in the atmosphere react with it and cause rusting. So, iron when react with oxygen and moisture forms a red substance called rust. Is called corrosion. What is rancidity? Let's see what is rancidity. So, corrosion is repeated here, the process of slow conversion of metals into their undesirable compounds due to their reaction with oxygen, water, acids, gases, etc. present in the atmosphere is called corrosion. And rusting, iron when reacts with oxygen and moisture forms red substances called rust. Now what is rancidity? The taste and odor of food materials containing fat and oil changes when they are left exposed to air for a long time. This is called rancidity. It is caused due to oxidation of fat and oil present in food material. It can be prevented by using various methods such as by adding antioxidants to the food materials, storing food in airtight container, and by flushing out air with nitrogen. So whenever the food is kept for a long time, fatty foods, oily foods for a long time, and they are left exposed to air for a long time, this is called rancidity. It is caused due to oxidation of fat and oil present in food material, which is not good for our health. Why should a magnesium ribbon be cleaned before it is burnt in air? Magnesium is a very reactive metal. When stored in reactants with oxygen to form a layer of magnesium oxide on its surface. This layer of magnesium oxide is quite stable and prevents further reaction of magnesium with oxygen. The magnesium ribbon is cleaned by sandpaper for removing this layer so that the underlying metal can be exposed to air. So when magnesium is exposed to air, the oxygen settles on it and the reaction is not possible. If you want to burn the magnesium ribbon, it won't burn as it should burn. So the oxygen layer which is settled on the magnesium ribbon has to be removed by cleaning it with a sandpaper, and then you can do the experiment of burning the magnesium ribbon, which gives white precipitate after burning. Write the balanced equation for the following chemical reactions. Hydrogen plus chlorine gives hydrogen chloride. So H2 plus Cl2 gives 2HCl. Barium chloride plus aluminium sulfate gives barium sulfate plus aluminium chloride. BaCl2 plus Al2SO4 3 gives BaSO4 plus AlCl3. Sodium plus water gives sodium hydroxide plus hydrogen. Sodium is Na plus water is H2O, and sodium hydroxide is NaOH, and H2 is hydrogen. To solve this chemical equation, first you write down the symbols of every element as given in the question. For example, first chemical equation is hydrogen plus chlorine. So write the symbol of hydrogen, it's H2, chlorine Cl2, gives hydrogen chloride. Write the symbol of hydrogen chloride, HCl gas. After writing the symbols of the whole reaction, then after that you have to balance the chemical equation. Always remember, first write down all the symbols of the reaction, and after that you start balancing the chemical reaction. Write a balanced chemical equation with state symbols for the following reaction. Solution of barium chloride and sodium sulfate in water react to give insoluble barium sulfate and the solution of sodium chloride. So here we have to write a balanced chemical equation with their state symbols, in what state they are in. We also have to mention the states of the symbol, whether it is aqueous, whether it is solid, whether it is liquid, whether it is gaseous. So the first reaction is solution of barium chloride, that is BaCl2 plus sodium sulfate Na2SO4 mixed in water, both are aqueous, reactant will give insoluble barium sulfate, BaSO4, barium sulfate, BaSO4. It is insoluble, so it is solid, plus sodium chloride, NaCl, aqueous. After writing the symbols, you start balancing the equation. It is very simple to balance the chemical equation. Then second chemical equation, sodium hydroxide solution in water reacts with hydrochloric acid solution in water to produce sodium chloride solution and water. So sodium hydroxide solution, NaOH aqueous, plus hydrochloric acid aqueous gives sodium chloride, NaCl aqueous, plus solution and water, H2O liquid. So water is always liquid, so liquid. NaOH is chemical, so aqueous. HCl is a chemical acid base, so aqueous. Sodium chloride is HCl acid base, so it's aqueous. Points to remember: insoluble substances are in solid form because they are not dissolvable. The substances which don't dissolve are insoluble, and the substances that dissolve are soluble. You have to remember the symbols nicely. You have to learn the symbols nicely. A solution of a substance X is used for whitewashing. Name the substance X and write its formula. Write the reaction of substance X named in 1 above with water. So the substance X is calcium oxide. Its chemical formula is CaO. Here the question was which substance is used for whitewashing, as I told you in previous question. In types of reaction, calcium oxide is the chemical formula which is used for whitewashing. Then name the substance X and write its formula. What is the name of the substance X? Calcium oxide. It reacts vigorously with water to form calcium hydroxide, that is slaked lime. So CaO solid plus H2O liquid gives CaOH2 aqueous. Calcium oxide, quicklime plus water gives calcium hydroxide, slaked lime. Why is the amount of gas collected in one of the test tube is activity 1.7, double of the amount collected in the other? Name the gas. Water contains 2 parts of hydrogen and 1 part oxygen. Therefore, during the electrolysis of water, the amount of hydrogen gas collected in one of the test tube is double than that of the oxygen produced and collected in the other test tube. They are saying that the water contains 2 parts of hydrogen molecules and 1 part of oxygen molecule. So if you see, the formula of water is H2O. H2O means 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. So when 2 atoms of hydrogen are there during electrolysis, all the hydrogen atoms will be maximum in number as compared to oxygen. Therefore, during electrolysis of water, the amount of hydrogen gas collected in one of the test tubes is double than of the oxygen produced and collected in the other test tube. Why does the color of copper sulfate solution change when an iron nail is dipped in it? When an iron nail dipped in the copper sulfate solution, then iron displaces copper from the copper sulfate because iron is the more reactive than copper. Therefore, the color of the copper sulfate solution changes. The reaction involves here is Fe solid plus CuSO4 aqueous gives FeSO4 aqueous plus Cu solid. Give an example of a double displacement reaction other than the one given in activity. So here, potassium bromide plus BaL aqueous gives 2 potassium iodide plus barium bromide. Identify the substances that are oxidized and the substances that are reduced in the following reactions. (4Na solid plus O2 gas gives 2Na2O. So sodium, that is Na, is oxidized as it gains oxygen and oxygen gets reduced. In second chemical equation, CuO solid plus hydrogen gas gives copper plus water. So copper oxide is reduced to copper, while hydrogen gets oxidized to water. So in the first reaction, sodium is oxidized as it gains oxygen, and oxygen gets reduced. In second reaction, copper oxide is reduced to copper, while hydrogen gains oxygen. So hydrogen is oxidized to water. Which of the statements about the reaction below are incorrect? PbOS, Cs 2Pbs solid plus CO2 gaseous. Lead is getting reduced, carbon dioxide is getting oxidized, carbon is getting oxidized, lead oxide is getting reduced. So the incorrect are lead is getting reduced because lead is not getting reduced. Lead is getting reduced. Lead is getting reduced is incorrect because lead is getting reduced. In left hand side we can see oxygen getting reduced. And B, carbon dioxide is getting oxidized. See, carbon dioxide is getting oxidized because carbon is getting oxidized, not carbon dioxide. Only carbon is getting oxidized. Fe2O3, 2 aluminium, 2Al2O3, aluminium oxide plus ferrous iron. The above reaction is an example of a combination reaction, double displacement reaction, decomposition reaction, or displacement reaction. Aluminium is the more reactive in this reaction. So, aluminium is displacing iron. In last reactions we saw that iron displaces copper and bromine displaces copper, but we see here now aluminium is stronger than iron, where aluminium is displacing iron. So the strongest element we found is aluminium. So it is a displacement reaction where aluminium is displacing iron. What happens when dilute hydrochloric acid is added to iron fillings? Take the correct answer. Hydrogen gas and iron chloride are produced. Chlorine gas and iron hydroxide are produced. No reaction takes place. Iron salt and water are produced. The answer is hydrogen gas and iron chloride are produced. So when you add dilute hydrochloric acid to iron fillings, hydrogen gas and iron chloride are produced. What is a balanced chemical equation? Why should chemical equations be balanced? A reaction which has an equal number of atoms of all the elements on both sides of the chemical equation is called a balanced chemical equations. Chemical reaction should be balanced to follow law of conservation of mass. Where same number of atoms should be present on the left hand side in the reactants as well as on the right hand side in products, with the masses of the atoms are balanced. Translate the following statements into chemical equations and then balance them. Hydrogen gas combines with nitrogen to form ammonia. Hydrogen sulfide gas burns in air to give water and sulfur dioxide. Barium chloride reacts with aluminium sulfate to give aluminium chloride and a precipitate of barium sulfate. Potassium metal reacts with water to give potassium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. To translate these statements, you should know the symbols of every element. The questions looks difficult, but it is not difficult at all. You have to write the symbols. What is the symbol of hydrogen? If you see the first question, hydrogen gas combines with nitrogen to form ammonia. So what is the symbol for hydrogen? Write the symbol for hydrogen, then plus, then write the symbol for nitrogen, then plus, then write the symbol for ammonia. So the question is, hydrogen is combining with nitrogen. So hydrogen is combining with nitrogen means hydrogen plus nitrogen to form ammonia. And then you have to put an arrow and it is forming a product, ammonia. So it is very important to understand the question. Unless and until you don't understand the question, you won't find it easy. So hydrogen gas combines with nitrogen to form ammonia. (3H2 plus N2). Hydrogen plus nitrogen gives ammonia, NH3. Okay. First you have to write the symbols. The symbol of hydrogen is H2. The symbol of nitrogen is N2. After combining, it will give NH3. NH3. When hydrogen atoms will be 3, then you will balance the equation by writing 3 on the left hand side on reactant. And then write number of nitrogen atoms. Nitrogen atoms are 2, so write 2 on the right hand side. So 3 2s are 6, 6 hydrogen atoms, 2 3s are 6 on the right hand side, 6 hydrogen atoms. Same way the other equations are given below. 2H2S gas plus 3O2 gives 2H2O liquid plus 2SO2. (3BaCl2 aqueous plus Al2SO4 aqueous gives AlCl3 aqueous plus BaSO4 solid. 2K solid plus H2O gives KOH aqueous plus H2 gas. Balance the following chemical equations. You can see the balanced equations here. The symbols are given. We have to just balance them. Balancing chemical equations is very easy. Learn the symbols and the names of the symbols. Write the balanced chemical equations for the following reactions. Calcium hydroxide plus calcium carbon dioxide gives calcium carbonate plus water. So calcium hydroxide is CaOH2 plus carbon dioxide is CO2, which will give, after reacting, CaCO3, calcium carbonate, because carbon dioxide is reacting here with the calcium oxide, calcium hydroxide. Same way, the other reactions you have to solve. You should know the symbols of every element. Symbol of zinc, silver nitrate, zinc nitrate, silver, aluminium, copper chloride, aluminium chloride, copper, barium chloride, potassium sulfate, barium sulfate, potassium chloride, and then you can easily solve this chemical equation and balance them. Write the balanced chemical equation for the following and identify the type of reaction in each case. So you have to balance these chemical equations and you have to write which type of chemical reaction is this particular reaction, whether it is a combination reaction, whether it is a displacement reaction, whether it is a exothermic reaction, endothermic reaction, redox reaction. You have to mention what type of reaction is it. So first reaction, let's check out. As I told you, learn all the symbols of all the elements nicely. So first one is double displacement reaction. You can see two reactants here and two reactants here on the right side. Two reactants on the reactant side, left hand side, and two reactants on the product side. In the first reaction, K takes the place of Br. So K combines with aluminium and bromine combines with barium. So there is an exchange of elements in double displacement reaction. the elements are exchanged in double displacement reaction. In single displacement reaction, only the most reactive element acts on the weaker element, on the less reactive element, but here double displacement, two elements are displaced and their positions are exchanged. So exchanging the places of the elements is double displacement reaction. Both the elements are exchanged with each other. So here potassium is with aluminium on the right hand side. On left, potassium was with bromine and barium was with aluminium. Not aluminium, it's iodide. So here potassium was with bromine on the left hand side and barium was with iodide. After reacting the right hand side, potassium is with iodide and barium is with bromine. Second one is ZnCO3 solid gives ZnOS plus CO2. It is a decomposition reaction. When one reactant reacts to produce more than one product, is called decomposition reaction. Then H2 gas plus chlorine gives 2HCl. This is a combination reaction. When two or more reactants combine together and produce one product is called combination reaction. Then the D1 is Mg solid plus 2HCl aqueous gives MgCl2 plus H2. It is a displacement reaction where Mg is with chlorine and H2 is displaced. Hydrogen is displaced from chlorine. So it is a displacement reaction. What does one mean by exothermic and endothermic reaction? Give example. Chemical reaction that release energy in the form of heat, light or sound are called exothermic reactions. Example, carbon plus oxygen gives carbon dioxide and heat. Reactions that absorb energy or require energy in order to produce or proceed are called endothermic reactions. Example, nitrogen plus oxygen gives nitrogen oxide. Why is respiration considered an exothermic reaction? Explain. Respiration is considered as an exothermic reaction because in respiration oxidation of glucose takes place, which produces large amount of heat energy, where glucose is C6H12O6 plus 6O2 gives CO2 plus 6H2O plus energy. In product, large amount of heat energy is produced. Why are decomposition reactions called the opposite of combination reactions? Write equations for these reactions. Now, decomposition reaction are those in which a compound breaks down to form two or more substances. These reactions require a source of energy to proceed. Thus, they are the exact opposite of combination reaction, in which two or more substances combine to give a new substance with the release of energy. For example, decomposition reaction, CaCO3 heats and gives CaO plus CO2. When calcium carbonate is heated, you will get calcium oxide and carbon dioxide will be released in the gas form. If you remember, the CaCO3 is the dried whitewashing on the walls, is the marble where in this decomposition reaction, that marble, if you heat it again, it will give a calcium oxide in solid form and the CO2 will be released in gas form. So this is decomposition reaction. This is why decomposition reaction is called the opposite of combination reaction. Write one equation each for decomposition reaction where energy is supplied in the form of heat, light or electricity. CaCO3 when heated gives CaO and carbon dioxide. When silver chloride is exposed to sunlight, it gives silver and chlorine, and when water is electrolyzed, it gives hydrogen and oxygen. Two separate elements are formed by one single reactant. Two separate products are formed by one single reactant. What is the difference between displacement and double displacement reaction? Write equations for these reactions. So, I think this question is repeated again. Write one equation each of the decomposition reaction where energy is supplied in the form of heat, light or electricity. CaCO3, 2AgCl, H2O. What is the difference between displacement and double displacement reaction? Write equations for these reactions. In a displacement reaction, a more reactive element replaces a less reactive element from a compound. For example is given here. And in a double displacement reaction, two atoms or a group of atoms switch places or exchange their elements to form new compounds. For example, Na2SO4 plus BaCl gives BaSO4 plus NaCl. Nitrogen sulfate plus barium chloride gives barium sulfate plus nitrogen chloride. In the refining of silver, the recovery of silver from silver nitrate solution involved displacement by copper metal. Write down the reaction involved. AgNO3 plus Cu gives CuNO3 plus Ag. Silver nitrate and copper, when reacts, they produce copper nitrate and silver. So, the refining of silver, the recovery of silver from silver nitrate solution involved displacement by copper metal. So, copper metal here is involved in refining the silver. silver nitrate AgNO3 plus copper Cu gives copper nitrate plus silver. What do you mean by a precipitation reaction? Explain by giving example. A reaction in which an insoluble solid called precipitate is formed is called a precipitation reaction. For example, Na2CO3 plus CaCl2 gives CaCO3 solid plus NaCl aqueous. Sodium carbonate plus calcium chloride gives calcium carbonate plus sodium chloride. In this reaction, calcium carbonate is obtained as a precipitate, hence it is a precipitation reaction. Insoluble solid is a substance which cannot dissolve. Explain the following in terms of gain or loss of oxygen with 2 examples each. So oxidation and reduction. Here oxidation reaction, it is a chemical reaction in which gain of oxygen or loss of hydrogen takes place. So what is oxidation reaction? Oxidation reaction is in which gain of oxygen and loss of hydrogen takes place. So you see your example, magnesium plus oxygen gives MgO. Here is gain of oxygen. Okay. So here magnesium is oxidized to become magnesium oxide. So magnesium is oxidized because magnesium is gaining oxygen. So magnesium is oxidized here. That's why it is a magnesium oxide. 2Cu plus O2, copper plus oxygen gives copper oxide. Now here copper is gaining oxygen to become copper oxide. So copper is oxidized. Reduction reaction, it is a chemical reaction in which loss of oxygen, gain of hydrogen takes place. Copper oxide plus hydrogen gives copper plus H2O, water. So here after heating copper oxide and hydrogen gains oxygen and copper reduces oxygen. Loss of oxygen takes place. So it is called a reduction reaction. A shiny brown colored element X on heating in air becomes black in color. Name the element X and the black colored compound formed. X is Cu and the black colored compound formed is copper oxide. The equation of the reaction involved on heating copper is given below. Cu plus O2 gives CuO, shiny brown in color. When heated, produces black in color, copper oxide. Why do we apply paint on iron articles? Iron articles are painted because it prevents them from rusting. Yeah, why do we paint on iron articles? Iron articles are painted because it prevents them from rusting. When painted, the contact of iron articles from moisture and air is cut off. hence rusting is prevented. Oil and fat containing food items are flushed with nitrogen. Why? Oil and fat containing food items flushed with nitrogen because nitrogen acts as an antioxidant and it prevents them from being oxidized. As mentioned in rancidity, when the oil and fat containing foods are exposed and not kept in airtight containers, it started oxidizing and it's bad for health. So oil and fat containing food items flushed with nitrogen because nitrogen acts as an antioxidant and it prevents them from being oxidized. Explain the following terms: corrosion and rancidity. It's very simple. I've already explained what is corrosion and what is rancidity. Example of corrosion: Fe plus O2 plus H2 gives Fe2O3 rust in H2O. State the law which is kept in mind while we balance a chemical equation. Law of conservation of mass. Mass can neither be created nor be destroyed during a chemical reaction. So, we have to balance the atoms of the reactants on the left hand side and the products on the right hand side. That is law of conservation of mass. Mass can neither be created nor be destroyed, but it has to be balanced, which forms a balanced chemical equation. What is basic difference between a physical change and a chemical change? In a physical change, no new substance is formed. In a chemical change, new substance is formed. If I crush a paper, it is a physical change. Nothing is formed. If I mix different chemical substances, a new chemical is formed. It's a chemical change. What is meant by a chemical reaction? A process in which two or more substances react to form some other new substance with new set of properties is called a chemical reaction. For example, a process in which two or more substances react. If I take a paper and I burn it, I will get ashes. So that is completely a new substance formed after the reaction. That is CO2. In burning of a candle, a physical change or a chemical change. Is burning of a candle a physical or chemical change? So burning of candle is both chemical change and a physical change. Physically, the candle changes its shape and size, and chemical change from liquid to solid again. Solid to gaseous. Why are decomposing reactions called the opposite of combination reaction? In combination reaction, two substances combine to form one compound, and in decomposition reactions, a compound breaks down into two or more substances, so they are opposite to each other. Combination reaction, what happens? Two substances combine to form one compound, and in decomposition, what happens? One compound breaks down into two or more substances. It's very easy to remember. In combination reaction, there are two substances. You take two different elements and they will react and give you one compound, one product. Means in combination reaction, there are two reactants which will give you one product, and in decomposition reaction, there is one reactant which will break down and give you more than two or more products. So this is called the opposite of decomposition reaction and combination reaction. So students, this was my first lecture of notes for Cbsc board Science Chapter 1. Hope you understand my lecture, and these notes will be very much useful for you and for your exam preparations. Thank you so much. Like and subscribe my channel.